So I've been playing Genshin for I think about 3.5 years at this point, something like that. I came out for I came into the game in the Eula banner, Eula's first run, so around 2021, I think March or something like that. But regardless, every time I pop into the community and or the community starts talking about Spiral Abyss, there's very polarizing situations. Either people like it or people are tossing all manner of curses towards the Spiral Abyss, molding, or they just don't touch it. It becomes this abomination that people do not want to tap into. And I think in somewhere during Inazuma, there was that whole dev note from a journalist that said they don't really want to double in Spiral Abyss because not many people interact with it, and thus they'll go into other content. And that made me be thinking for all this time, being like, all right, so what's the issue with Spiral Abyss? Is it that people don't like the content? Is it that people just generally don't want to do hard content because maybe they don't have the time, or maybe they just want to chill out, right? And I wanted to open up this discussion for people to comment on. So let's start with the general overview of Spiral Abyss. Spiral Abyss innately has 12 floors. Each floor has 3 chambers. Each chamber has a certain mechanic and or goal to achieve towards in order to get the maximum rewards. This isn't really different from any other Abyss in any other game, but what makes Spiral Abyss somewhat different is that the last 4 floors of these 12 floor Abyss changes every 2 weeks. And I think this in of itself is an issue because it diminishes progress. And what do I mean by this? For example, in Epic 7, right, we have an abyss that has 120 floors. And I'm not saying Genshin should reach that extreme, but for this case, let's use it. When you're tackling abyss, you will always get stuck at one point or another, right? It's just the general timeline of doing hard content. You breeze through some, you mold at some. But what the 100 floor abyss or the 120 floor abyss allows you to do is mark progress, right? You will hit floor 15, get stuck on floor 15, do what you need to do past floor 15, and you hit floor 20. Now you have moved from 15 to 20. What does that mean for Genshin? In Genshin's term, you do floor 1 to 8, and once you've done those, it is the bar mark. You've hit 8, you have accomplished that feat. And then when you start from 9 to 12, right, you do 9 to 12, and then every 2 weeks the game kind of tells you that, oh yeah, we've just reset your progress, and now do 9 to 12 again. That innately isn't an issue, like if you like just generally challenging content. But with the nature of Abyss, right, I think Abyss is more annoying than challenging to most people. And what does this do? It makes you do your first 36 star where you've accomplished a challenge and you've overcome it, and then you go into the next rotation and you can't 36 star. Now you won't find the new challenge more. It won't be like, oh, I 36 starred before and now I am not 36 star and this is progress, because you have innately you, you accomplished what you wanted to in the beginning, and now you can't accomplish the same feat. So instead of it being like I hit point A and now I'm moving to point B, it's like I hit point A and now I'm walking the journey again and I can't reach A. And I think that mentality of taking away the achievement kind of makes Spiral Abyss salty, especially the longer this occurs, or the more frequent it occurs in your journey. Secondly, I think Spiral Abyss has the innate problem with its relationship to the character roster. Spiral Abyss has, let's assume that we're only talking about the last 4 floors in the Spiral Abyss, right? So those are 12, no, yeah, those are 12 chambers, right? In these 12 chambers, you generally only have one game mode, with the exception of I think floor 11 chamber 2, where it goes tower of defense. Everything else happens to be the time attack, where once again kill things as fast as possible within the time given. And I think this, in relationship to its character rosters, breeds the whole community into one kind of game mode, glass cannon, where you're forgoing a lot of supports unless the supports buff your damage in one way or the other, and gun ho, right? So some benefits from other characters, namely Yula and Ito, which seem to have this more bruisery thing, right? Bruisery aspect to them, where they can tank a lot more damage than typical characters. That's useless. It's like it's useful generally speaking, but no one takes Ito over Xialing because of tankiness. No one does that. And as such, you can see certain qualities within certain characters that make them their unique character is overshone by the whole fact that you just need to kill the characters. And I think this is mainly felt by healers. Healers within Genshin have this notorious thing of if they only heal, they're just shit. Right, one way or the other, you if it was between healers and shielders, you will always go for shielders over healers. Obviously, Fountain has kind of shifted this with more characters needing innate healing because they steal their own health. But I feel like that's more of a response to the current situation rather than a new gimmick, right? So I would like to point out in the case of Kokomi, before we had all these Farina and Neverlet characters roaming about. When Kokomi came out, there was no real reason to use Kokomi apart from a Hydro application, and I think that generally reflected in her sales. Now, you might say some theory crafters pointed out that Hydro applications be real good and or certain other qualities be real good in certain teams, but I feel like for the vast majority of the population, right, the people who don't look at videos, the people who don't give two shits about that, they saw her, they were like dedicated healer. We have Barbara, we have Chi Chi, and to be fair, Chi Chi and Barbara not really used to a certain extent. So why would you pick Kokomi? And that's her sales were low. We got the Wolfhounds that got the bleeding effects that for a time we thought that would promote more healing characters, but to be fair, it did, but also didn't. It promoted healing characters in the short run, and then people just realized the safest way to avoid the bleeding effect is just to straight up kill them, which kind of made the whole situation relapse to begin with, making it non-effective. And I think if we look at all the debuffs within the game that occur to the character, they all in one way or the other support healing, which while generally having enemies that do debuffs is a good mechanic, when they're only targeting one aspect of the mechanic or aspect of all the characters in the game, it doesn't feel nice because it feels like for all intents and purposes a kid being told to eat his vegetables, and we are out here saying we don't want the carrots, they taste like shit. So it may end up this whole situation may end up leading to more people innately avoiding healers because the game is trying to shove healers down your throat, and when you're being forced to do what you don't like to do, you end up hating the characters even more, which I don't think bodes well for any dedicated healer and may end up making people who are impartial to the healing hate the healers. So what does this mean for Spiral Abyss? I think at this point the difficulty of Spiral Abyss is fine. I don't want harder content. I just want more, to be fair. And I think Spiral Abyss in of itself is not a very sustainable permanent game mode when not accompanied with others. So first of all, have more game modes to accompany it. It doesn't need to be much, it could be one or two more. It just needs to be something that acts like a palate cleanser to the annoying content within Spiral Abyss. Because I think Spiral Abyss at this point is more annoying than it is hard. By the way, pause for a moment. Who came up with the idea to have the, is it called the walnut and the mechanical serpent in Spiral Abyss? You have a mode that says kill something with that many in X amount of minutes, and then you go right ahead and bring in an enemy that wastes your time. You can't attack it, you can't stop it from wasting your time. If the mechanical serpent decides to do its cringy thing of just spiraling on the ground, you're just fucked. Reset. I think those are just generally molding moments that you can't escape from. Who asked for this? But besides the point, I think, yeah, first of all, more game modes. I think they have a game mode in that they have already done a game mode before that could be good, like the roguelike. Preferably they add more terrain to it or more stuff to it, and then the roguelike could rotate with Spiral Abyss. So week 1 Spiral Abyss, week 2 roguelike, week 3 Spiral Abyss, week 4 roguelike, and go so on and so forth, acting like a palate cleanser so that you're not molding as much. And maybe they could shake up the meta because it is a roguelike, like promote more healing because you go through more floors, right? Which allows sustenance to take the limelight. I think secondly we could also make Spiral Abyss permanent. Now, not in the same way as Epic 7 and not the way you're thinking. I think generally how I presume it to be and how I guess it's kind of working is you generally have a Sparrow Abyss within every country or region, right? So what would happen is when a new region pops up, the old region Spiral Abyss, which has been cycling between 2 years, oh no, 2 weeks, kind of stabilizes, right? I don't know how low relevant this is, but it kind of stabilizes, and then a new abyss opens up within the new region, and that one rotates between the 2 weeks, and so on and so forth, so that you have kind of like a progress. I defeated the Sumeru abyss, right? I defeated the monster abyss, so you can see your progress for new players. The floor 12 doesn't be this huge gap between floor 11, because floor 12 scales with how geared and or knowledgeable the player base is in average, so they can now go through the steps and see the steps we have taken, and or see their progress they've taken to catch up with us. As for the rewards within these stabilized abysses, I think you can up them up, give something like a 3 4 star, what do you call it, a 3 4 star constellation, right? Give that out at, let's say, the floor 12 of that region. One time reward, no one's gonna get it twice. You're only gonna get 7 within 7 regions. That should see 6 one character plus C1 another. I don't think that's too costly with the amount of characters that are coming out. And yeah, so what do you think about it? If you like this content, please tell me down below. If you have any critiques about this content, also please tell me down below. Do the YouTube algorithm stuff, like and comment. I think I'll try and make a couple more of these kind of contents. I have an idea and I don't know how it's gonna work, so we'll see about it. But thanks for listening if you've reached the end of this.